was pretty astounding.
There was just an energy about them, and there was something about David. I mean, you could just see him on the stage.
I thought he was incredible. I knew the minute I saw him perform that he was going places.
You're watching a star being born.
Horn said, basically, guys, this is what you need to do. You need to play every single club in every town all across America.
Trucking, got my chips cashed in, keep trucking.
Korn was a big Grateful Dead fan. He saw many shows and was familiar with how that organization worked.
The live show was the most important thing.
We're on the road for like 10 months out of the year.
You're playing like 6 nights in a row, and there's a 300-mile drive between each city.
We traveled in a 15-passenger van.
You're talking about, a nasty, van bench, with a bunch of other grumpy, smelly guys.
Just like all of us packed in there, it was just like god-awful, smelly, feed and ass and rotten food and God knows what.
But they all wanted to do it. They all wanted to work hard. They all wanted to make it. Dave Matthews Band would play every place that would possibly have them. It was fraternities, it was clubs, parking lots, backyards.
It was not always an easy task to get through a show.
There were times when Dave was just exhausted. His throat would just be so raw he could hardly speak, and he would get cortisone shots in his neck just so he could go out and take the stage that night.
Dave did his fair share of keeping everyone, including the crew, going.
I remember one time we were playing like 2 gigs in a day, and Dave could see that I was pretty weary at that time, but I remember he just stopped me in the middle of the street, and he just looked at me, and he was like, we're gonna do this.
Everybody worked hard to spread the word and get people involved, but it all came down to those guys going on stage every night. They just blew people away. All the while, they had people recording shows, and those shows were being traded on cassette tapes. It was something that the Grateful Dead made famous.
David's take on the taping policy was let the music get out there and share it.
They would go to colleges the first time, and the kids would be singing along, and they'd never even been there before.
Everyone knew every word to every song, and they hadn't released any material.
It was a real grassroots movement.
I want to thank you all here in Virginia for spreading the word about us and for helping us out.
We just built crowds just like one place at a time. It was very much a word-of-mouth kind of thing.
It was like that old shampoo commercial where they told 2 friends and they told 2 friends, and it just went like that.
The fans were like generating the stuff for us. The only thing we had to do was just play, and they took care of the rest.
An intern of mine who went to Colgate University kept hassling me that he had this tape he wanted me to hear. And from the moment it came out of the speakers, it felt like something different. So I immediately reacted and called a colleague of mine in New York, Pete Robinson.
Bruce Floor had called me up and goes, hey, you ever hear this guy Dave Matthews Band?
I said, he's playing in New York. We should go check it out.
There was like 400, 500 kids there. The place was packed. The music was great. The band was great on stage. David was great. It was kind of, it gave you goosebumps. It was amazing.
I mean, this is in the period of Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. And here was this rock band on stage without an electric guitar, playing music more powerful than any of those bands I've mentioned. Then it was a matter of, how do we make this ours?
RCA came on really strong.
It was not an immediate love fest. The Dave Matthews Band and management was very standoffish.
Dave was a little bit nervous about signing a record deal. Their strategy was always, we'll do everything that we can to keep it within our family.
So what we set out to do is try to capture the band and take a really good picture of what they did live. And that's when we set out to do Remember Two Things.
Cause a trip ain't meant me.
It just made more sense to recording an independent album.
The idea was to build something for themselves that would last, not just sign away to a label and be like, okay, here's my publishing rights.
Hey!
Bruce Floor and Pete Robinson were determined to get them on RCA.
We'd go to see them out on the road, and we actually got to know them, and that helped us a lot.
This was a 7-month process. And when we came and put our deal on the table and our vision on the table, it was really, you lead, we follow.
It would have been foolish for any label to have come in and dramatically change what they were doing.
And I think that was one of the linchpins of the band deciding to sign with RCA.
It never felt like we were signing over our future to this label. I remember Dave always used to talk about it's just longer arms for us to use.
It wasn't until November of '93 until they actually signed. It was a pretty great day.
Remember Two Things was released on the night that they signed with RCA.
All these kids were lined up to have the record autograph.
It turned into a mob scene.
It was an amazing moment the night the band signed their record contract.
David was excited in the fact that they'd signed with a major label. RCA had been Elvis's label, and it was an enormous step.
It was just his realization that we had sort of created something.
Dave Matthews Band was in Boulder when the tour manager got a phone call.
There was a horrible, horrible, horrible incident.
Dave was on a plane pretty soon thereafter.
I remember thinking.
I remember there was a sign up on the door that said, due to a family emergency, Dave Matthews Band won't be playing tonight.
I'll go on forever only knowing I'll see you again.
Anne tragically died in South Africa, and her husband also tragically died.
David was really, obviously, completely devastated at the death of his sister.
It had an enormous impact on everyone.
Dave handled it in a very private fashion.
He's had his own set of personal tragedies, but he's got a strength of purpose and an understanding of what life is.
He had converted the suffering part of his life into a positive, and it gave him greater determination than he had before.
When you're not here, that's hung around my head.
Next, Dave takes to the studio and bounces back.
We were singing all different notes there, weren't we?
I think every record is cathartic in its own way. And Under the Table and Dreaming, that was a good thing for Dave.
It's his little way of saying goodbye.
Dave's sister died under tragic circumstances that affected Dave greatly.
I got in this morning. I was in South Africa. That's a country full of lots of violence and lots of hatred, but it's also full of lots of love and lots of